If you walked into Leo's apartment right now, you'd see a key for a 2017 Honda Civic hanging by the door, a slow cooker simmering on the counter, and a brokerage account he hasn't actively logged into since he upped his contribution last January. His furniture is functional, his television isn't the latest model, there's an open bag of lentils in the kitchen, and a wall calendar where he's written 401k plus 1% on the first of the year going back to 2020. If you walked into Gavin's place, however, the first thing catching your eye is the $3,950 espresso machine still sitting in its box, a Black Friday impulse buy he hasn't found time to set up yet. Next to Gavin's door is a stack of unreturned online retail packages. His phone screen is lighting up with 2 separate trading app alerts, and there's a parking receipt for a $48 a day downtown spot because the $24 lot requires a 7-minute walk. Gavin has been meaning to check his credit card balances since around Halloween, but he's genuinely anxious to look. They live in the same city, hold the same job title, and their salaries are close enough that income difference doesn't explain the reality I'm about to show you. At age 37, Leo has $355,000 invested. At the same age, Gavin has $12,500 saved, and a $795 monthly car payment he tries not to regret every time he turns the ignition. This isn't a story about earning more money. It's a story about 10 habits so incredibly dull, so profoundly unsexy, that most people bypass them entirely while waiting for a magic bullet to move the needle. I'm Pam, and I spend way too much time running the math on why some people escape the financial rat race while others remain stuck on the wheel until they're 70. If you've ever reached the end of a normal month, looked at your bank account, and felt like money was leaking out somewhere undetected, make sure to subscribe because today we are locating the leak. Before we get to the list, let me address the primary lie financial media sells right now because it's costing people literal decades of progress. The lie is this: you haven't built wealth yet because you haven't discovered the right thing, the perfect investment, the secret strategy, or the exact right moment to buy in. The implication is always that a secret strategy exists somewhere that you just haven't found. Researchers surveyed over 11,000 everyday American millionaires. 78% received absolutely zero inheritance, and a third never earned a 6-figure salary in a single year. The top profession among them? Engineer. The second? Accountant. Not early crypto adopter. Accountant. It took them a median of 27 years to reach that status. Not 27 years of financial genius or finding the thing. Just 27 years of doing boring things consistently while compound interest did the heavy lifting. Habit 1. Automate savings before your brain gets a say in the matter. Eleanor Vance worked as a secretary at a medical supply company. In 1936, she purchased 4 shares of the company stock for roughly $220, set up automatic dividend reinvestment, and then essentially did nothing else. She lived in a modest 1-bedroom apartment, shopped at thrift stores, and never owned a car. When she passed away in 2012 at age 101, those 4 shares had compounded for over 7 decades into $7.5 million. She donated the entire amount to a local university. Here is why her method works better than relying on willpower. Vanguard's 2026 data found that retirement plans utilizing automatic enrollment achieve a 93% participation rate. Voluntary enrollment, where you must consciously choose to save, only gets 62%. 31 percentage points of human behavior vanish the moment saving becomes a decision rather than a default setting. Because when you have to make the decision, you are asking your brain to choose between something tangible right now versus something abstract 30 years from now. In that fight, the future loses almost every single time. Here is what that gap costs you. Auto-enrolled employees saved an average of 12.3% of their pay in 2025. Voluntary enrollees saved only 7.8%. On a $62,000 salary, that $2,790 annual difference, compounded at 10% over 30 years, is approximately $460,000. That difference didn't come from a better investment. It came because one person made saving the default, while the other had to keep choosing it. And some months they chose differently. Research indicates people demand roughly 280% annual returns just to delay gratification by 3 months. You are not going to outdiscipline that psychological reality, so don't even try. Automate the 401k and set up automatic transfers on payday. The money needs to move before you see it, meaning your brain never has to fight the urge to keep it. When you get this right, it feels like a quiet, pleasant surprise every time you check your balance. You didn't feel the daily sacrifice. The number just kept growing in the background. Habit 2. Drive something paid off and slightly embarrassing. The average new car payment in America is now $765 a month. Dealerships make that figure feel manageable by extending the loan terms. They shifted from 5 years to 7, from 7 to 8, and we have even started seeing 12-year car loans offered, which is an actual thing that exists now. The monthly payment goes down, the total amount you pay goes way up, and the asset loses 45% of its value in the first 3 years. By year 4 of a 7-year loan, you owe more than the car is worth, which is exactly when people trade it in, roll the negative equity into a new loan, and restart the clock. At that point, the truck isn't transportation anymore, it's a personality trait. It is $950 a month of identity that you will still be paying for in 2032 when the truck is worth $15,500 and your coffee maker has broken. That $765 monthly payment, invested in an S&P 500 index fund at 10% for 30 years, grows to $1.74 million. Instead, most people have a 2025 truck with ventilated seats and a calendar reminder for an oil change. Arthur Pendleton worked as a gas station attendant for 26 years and a department store janitor for 18. He used a safety pin to keep his jacket closed because it was fraying. He drove a used compact sedan and always parked far from parking meters. When he died in 2015, he left $8.2 million to his local hospital and library. His used car wasn't his financial limitation. It was evidence that he understood something most people miss. The car payment is the most expensive status symbol in America, and most people paying for it cannot actually afford it. Habit 3. Cook food at home. Your retirement likely depends on it. Let's check back in on Leo and Gavin. Leo uses his slow cooker twice a week, spends about $85 at the grocery store weekly, and eats the vast majority of his meals at home. Gavin orders delivery 4 nights a week, goes to a nice restaurant on Friday, and buys lunch near his office daily because packing something takes 15 minutes he feels he doesn't have. Gavin spends roughly $940 a month on food. Leo spends $440. That $500 monthly gap, invested at 10% for 25 years, is approximately $660,000, generated by a slow cooker and slightly boring weeknight meals. Americans now spend a record 56% of their food budget away from home. A home-cooked meal averages $5.50 per serving. A comparable restaurant meal averages $24.50. Millionaires in that study I mentioned spent $425 a month on groceries and only $210 eating out, a 2-to-1 ratio favoring the kitchen. The national average is the exact inverse of that behavior. Nobody frames cooking as a wealth decision because it feels too insignificant. It's just dinner. But Tuesday night dinner, compounded over 25 years, is $660,000. One slow cooker meal at a time. Habit 4. Buy less house than the bank permits. The bank's job is not to tell you what you can comfortably afford. The bank's job is to calculate the maximum loan you can sustain without immediately defaulting. Those are two fundamentally different numbers, and the gap between them is where people spend the next 30 years feeling quietly trapped. A household earning $105,000 that keeps housing costs at 25% of income instead of stretching to 35% frees up $10,500 a year. At 10% interest over 30 years, That is $1.75 million, not from picking a better stock, but from buying the second best house instead of the very best one. Researchers like Dr. Sarah Jenkins studied this for decades. Wealthy accumulators consistently lived in neighborhoods where they were not the richest people on the block, in houses that left them financial margin. The high earners who looked wealthy often had spectacular homes and almost nothing else. The house was the reason they had no wealth, not the reward for having it. What getting this right actually feels like is this. The HVAC breaks and it's fine. The car needs new brakes and it's fine. You don't lie awake running mental math, hoping nothing breaks this month because one broken thing doesn't threaten your entire existence. That feeling, being able to absorb a shock without facing a crisis, is what financial security actually is. A lot of people trade that feeling away for a kitchen they love. We are 4 habits in, and I know what some of you are thinking. Cook more, buy less house, drive a used car. My parents told me all of this, and you're right. It isn't new information. But the Federal Reserve's own data shows only 52% of American adults actually spent less than they earned in 2025. More than half the country is breaking even or going backward, not because they don't know this stuff, but because there is an industry worth hundreds of billions designed to make doing the opposite feel rational. Habit 5 is where that industry thrives. Habit 5, track every dollar like it has somewhere better to be. 87% of Americans say they have a budget. 85% of those same people regularly exceed it. What we have created is a population that has a number in mind, feels bad about that number, keeps spending past it anyway, and still identifies as people who budget. Look, that is not budgeting. That is just having a figure you feel guilty about after the fact, which does absolutely nothing. Tracking isn't about restriction, it's about information. When you see exactly where the money goes, you notice trades you didn't realize you were making. You see the $355 a month in unused subscriptions you forgot about. The $625 labeled miscellaneous that is entirely convenience fees. The $195 in bank fees on an account you should have closed years ago. You cannot make strategic decisions about money you aren't looking at. Most people aren't looking, and they only find out there's a problem because the number at the end of the month is always smaller than it should be, and they can never quite explain why. Tracking explains why. Habit 6. Invest every raise before your lifestyle knows about it. You get a $5,200 raise, and your take-home pay goes up maybe $320 a month. Within 90 days, your spending has usually found a $320 upgrade. Maybe it's a slightly nicer apartment, a more convenient parking spot, or buying lunch instead of packing it. Maybe it's nothing you can specifically name. The money just absorbed into your daily life. The mechanism here is hedonic adaptation. Your brain makes every new financial baseline feel like normal in about 3 months. The $215 dinner is special the first time you do it. By the 15th time, it's just a Tuesday night that costs $215, and you can't remember when that became your normal. The fix is almost insultingly simple. The moment a raise is confirmed, before your first new paycheck arrives, increase your automated retirement contribution. Your lifestyle never learns what it was supposed to get, so it can't miss it. Investing half of a $5,200 raise every year for 20 years at 10% compounds to roughly $163,000. Investing the full raise amounts to over $326,000 just from telling your bank account about the money before you tell your lifestyle. Gavin got a $6,200 raise last year. He upgraded his parking spot, started buying lunch daily, and picked up 2 streaming trials he forgot to cancel. His savings rate didn't budge. His raise is now just a slightly more expensive Tuesday. Leo got the same raise. He increased his 401k contribution by $320 a month before the first new paycheck arrived. He didn't notice the difference in his daily life. His investment account certainly did. Habit 7. Buy index funds and then do literally nothing. It's the most boring sentence in finance, yet the one that statistically beats almost every alternative. Buy a low-cost S&P 500 index fund, automate your contributions, and leave it completely alone. Here is what happens when people try to be smarter than that. Dalbar's 2026 report found the average equity investor earned 17.12% in 2025. The S&P 500 returned 25.88%, an 8.76-point gap. Investors predicted the market's direction correctly in only 26% of quarters, worse than a coin flip. These aren't just amateurs being careless. These are people who were actively trying, and that trying is exactly what cost them. The Spiva scorecard found that after 15 years, there are 0 categories in which the majority of professional active fund managers beat their benchmark. 0. People equipped with Bloomberg terminals, teams of research analysts, and decades of experience cannot do it consistently. The strategy that beats most of them fits on a napkin, and it is embarrassing how well it works. The boring choice isn't the consolation prize, it is the optimal strategy. The market rewards patience and punishes cleverness at a rate that should bother everyone who's ever felt smart about a stock pick. Habit 8. Build an emergency fund like something will absolutely go wrong. Because it will. A 3 to 6 month emergency fund doesn't compound, it doesn't make for a good headline, and nobody has ever bragged about their high-yield savings account on social media. It is the least exciting financial product in existence. Yet, it is the reason some people's financial lives survive contact with reality, while others collapse. 38% of American adults in 2026 couldn't cover a $450 emergency with cash. A blown tire, an unexpected copay, a dog eating something it shouldn't have on a Saturday. 1 in 3 adults puts that expense on a credit card at an average of 22.8% interest. A $1,050 emergency paid at minimums costs roughly $239 in interest annually just to stay in place. Credit card balances hit a record $1.31 trillion by early 2026, up 68% since late 2021. Americans are financing emergencies at 22.8% while trying to build wealth at 10%. You cannot do both successfully. The emergency is eating the investment. Habit 9. Ignore every exciting financial opportunity that finds you. A study tracked 1,650 day traders who persisted for more than 300 days. Not casual experimenters, but the committed ones. 98% lost money. Only 0.9% earned more than minimum wage. The FTC analyzed 75 multi-level marketing income disclosures and found approximately 98.5% of participants lose money when expenses are factored in. The brochure shows a beach, the math shows a bill. But this habit isn't really just about day trading or MLMs. It's about the broader pattern. It's the crypto play your coworker cannot stop mentioning, the real estate syndication from someone you've only met twice, the stock tip from a brother-in-law whose sure thing is statistically not different this time, the coaching program that promises to replace your income in 90 days for $3,497. All of them share the same architecture, a vivid story about the upside, with statistics about the downside left entirely out of the conversation. The mechanism at play is prospect theory. Humans are wired to overweight low-probability, high-payoff scenarios. Social media supercharges this by making the rare winner infinitely visible, while the 99% who lost money remain invisible. The S&P 500 has never once pitched you on its returns. It just returns them, year after year with zero sales deck. The rule is this: if someone is excited to bring you an opportunity, be proportionally skeptical. Genuine wealth building is boring to describe. If it sounds exciting, that's usually the warning label. Habit 10. Sleep on every major purchase for 72 hours. The average American spends $295 a month, over $3,500 a year, on impulse purchases. 69% of social media impulse buyers regret at least one purchase. They don't regret most of them, just one. They've already forgotten about the other 30 things they bought. Impulse desire has a half-life. The emotional urgency of a purchase drops significantly within 24 to 72 hours. 65 to 75% of wish-listed items are never actually purchased. Most buying impulses don't survive even mild friction. The 72-hour rule isn't about willpower, it's a timer. You aren't saying no, you're saying check back Friday. Most of the time, Friday arrives and the answer is no by default without a fight. Cutting impulse spending in half saves roughly $148 monthly, or $1,776 annually. Invested at 10% for 25 years, that's approximately $195,000 generated from a calendar reminder and 3 days of patience. Let's close the loop on Leo and Gavin. Leo is 37, he has $355,000 in investments, a paid-off car, a slow cooker, and a high-yield savings account he doesn't really think about. He's not wealthy yet, but at his current trajectory, by age 55, he'll have somewhere between $1.8 and $2 million. He won't change careers to get there. He'll just keep doing these 10 boring things and let 18 more years of compounding handle the math. Gavin is also 37. He has $12,500 saved, a car worth less than he owes on it, and a trading account down 26% from a tip that made complete sense at the time. He's not a failure, and he's not irresponsible. He's just been optimizing for how things feel in the moment instead of what they add up to over time. And the gap between him and Leo, which started as almost nothing, is now over $342,000, and it's compounding wider every single year. Here is what none of these 10 habits are actually about. They aren't about restriction. They aren't about being cheap. They're about one specific kind of power that most people trade away so gradually they never notice it's gone. The power to absorb what life throws at you without it becoming a catastrophe. When something goes wrong for Leo, it's an inconvenience. When something goes wrong for Gavin, it's a crisis. The median retirement savings for Americans aged 55 to 64 is $190,000 against a perceived need of $1.3 million. That's not a retirement, that's a runway. That's 2 years, maybe 3, before the math stops working entirely. It will happen to a lot of people who made decent money their whole careers and genuinely cannot explain where it went. Eleanor Vance did this with about $220 in 4 shares of stock. Arthur Pendleton did it on a janitor's salary wearing a safety-pinned jacket. Legendary investors still live in houses they bought in 1959 for $32,000. They didn't have better information. They didn't find the thing. They just let boring run long enough to become extraordinary. The habits aren't the point. The point is what they protect. Margin. The gap between what you earn and what you need. The option to say no to a job you hate. The ability to retire before your body forces you to. That's what is actually being built here. Not a number, not a portfolio balance. Options. And options are built one automated transfer, one paid-off car, one slow cooker Sunday at a time. Pick just one habit from this list. Do it this week. The compound effect doesn't require perfection. It just requires that you stop waiting for the exciting version of this to show up. It won't. This is the version. And it works. If this gave you a different way to think about any of this, hit the like button and subscribe. We do this exact kind of math-first breakdown every week. Drop in the comments the financial trap you want me to run the numbers on next. I will find a way to make it thoroughly unsexy and genuinely useful.